Hello everyone. Here's a video on the interface between Mars and Pluto. This is a talk I gave for the New Paradigm Astrology community in 2018. And I just want to give thanks to Jeffrey Wolf Green and the evolutionary astrology lineage for bringing forth these teachings on the Mars-Pluto relationship. It's really a relevant and essential key in understanding the core evolutionary dynamics within a soul. So enjoy this talk. And if you want to find more classes, I'm taking all of my classes off of my old platform. I'm sharing some of them for free here, making some of them available on my website. Check out my website, arimoshe.com, for more classes and for the opportunity to train with me in the Essentials course and the full year training program. All right, enjoy this talk. Hello everyone, this is Ari Moshe. I'm here in Portland, Oregon, and I'm creating this video on the current Mars-Pluto conjunction. This talk, we will go into understanding the relationship, the inherent relationship between Mars, between Pluto. We'll talk about the transit, and we'll talk about how these two archetypes interrelate with one another in general. I'm also going to provide a little exercise that we can apply to our own charts to further understand this Pluto energy and how it's activated through Mars in our lives. The first thing I want to speak about, there are two ways to do something. One way is doing it. The other way is doing it with intention. And there's a world of difference between these two ways. The first way of doing it is a scattering of energy. When action doesn't carry purpose, when action doesn't carry intention, our whole being isn't present. What we lack is empowerment. And one of the deepest teachings in spirituality is that life responds to intention. In a way, this encapsulates the very, very, very essence of the Mars-Pluto relationship. Let's talk about Pluto first. Pluto represents desire, and it's desire on the level of the soul. We can define the soul as desire-usness itself. The soul doesn't desire, it's desire. Soul implies evolution. Soul implies a process of realization. Within the context of every single incarnation, from the point of view of the soul, it is the desire nature of the soul that brings us into this lifetime. Whatever unresolved dynamics we carry within us, resolving this relationship dynamic, resolving these emotions, we can say that love, unity, oneness is the primary reality. And all of our desires are basically these energies offered into the open, permissible field of oneness and love. And yet these desires create a duality of there's something not here, something not now. And it creates in motion a path where we're interfacing with all of reality relative to our sense of wanting. Now, on a soul level, we're not necessarily translating these desires into a consciously formed thought. Like, I am here in this incarnation to resolve this grief that I've been carrying around my lover leaving me in a last lifetime, that I've been actually carrying for so many lifetimes. We come into this life as a baby. We're not even conscious of personal sense of self. The ego isn't even formed yet. So the resonance of the soul brings us into this lifetime, and we don't even have to understand the why. We don't understand the why. The why develops over time. The why develops as we gain spiritual insight and we begin to reflect upon how the outer reality is reflecting the inner reality. And so with Pluto, we are impelled to come into life. We are impelled to incarnate. We are also impelled to die. We are impelled to get involved. There's something for me to learn here. Unconsciously, I'm drawn. I don't know why I'm drawn. There's something here. Sometimes manifestations will arise in our life. We're not consciously choosing it. Like, we're not consciously choosing to be born to our parents or to be born with a particular DNA or a particular genetic condition. Or we're not choosing that one day something will happen in our life that will totally set ourselves in a new direction. We may not be consciously choosing these things, but on a soul level, we are resonating all of it. The soul's desire, the energetic vibrational reality of the soul, is the program. And everything that manifests is a reflection, is an extension of that core vibrational pattern. And when we shift our desire nature, when we become self-aware and realize, oh, this is what I'm wanting, this is what I'm needing, we get involved in something, hopefully it'll teach us. So we're impelled to come into life, the relationship, the incarnation itself, all the various experiences that we're drawn to. And from an evolutionary perspective, ideally, it shows us more of who we are. We claim more of our power. Oh, okay. I had this inside of me. Got it. I can now let go. Because everything that we come into will also get out of. Everything that comes will also go. That's the positive expression of Pluto. And the negative expression of Pluto would be coming into incarnation, coming into life and all of its various experiences, but holding on. On some level we do. And that's partially why we're constantly coming back. When we integrate our experiences, we come into a sense of wholeness. We say, oh, okay, I get it now. I can let that go. I can move on. I can evolve to the next level now. I can evolve to the next phase of growth. Otherwise, we get stuck, and we all know this. We can get stuck with the same addictions, compulsions, etc. for lifetimes and not evolve. And identity forms relative to whatever desires we're working out. And this is just as a side note, this is the nature of the moon and the nodes of the moon. We will create an identity structure that serves as a vehicle, a self-image, a way of knowing ourselves that allows us to engage our evolutionary desires, our intentions. When we're no longer needing to work out our various needs, desires, compulsions, addictions, fears, griefs, whatever, that identity structure that was relevant for that phase doesn't have any relevance either. And so with the Pluto evolutionary journey, we will go through phases of evolving, going through a whole experience, and then falling away, all of it dissolving. And there might be moments of that Neptunian fabric of love and oneness, feeling, there's just now. And then the journey continues. We keep on going, and it's refined and refined and refined. And one more piece about Pluto, as I mentioned, we're not conscious of it. So it's really important to understand that in the topic of not becoming a victim, in the topic of living in an empowered way, it's very helpful to have that wisdom and that understanding. I don't necessarily grasp how the outer reality is reflecting the inner. When the outer reflects the inner, there's profound wisdom, there's profound understanding. When we can really take full responsibility and see, literally grasp how this is this, then we can really grow. And there's a certain command that becomes available in our life as well. And that's a process. For the most part, we don't have the conscious awareness of this. We learn through life experience, getting involved, going through the same emotional reactions, the same hurt, the same pains. And it brings growth, it brings evolution in time. So now we go into Mars. Mars is also desire, whereas Pluto is the unconscious desires that manifest in the total reality that we're coming into. Resonates our incarnation itself. And by the way, you can think of incarnation as not just this lifetime, but each moment. Right? We're born in each moment. We wake up every day. And in general, we're running the same programs of the last incarnation, meaning of the last day, of the last moment. And so life will continue to manifest for us relative to the function of our own consciousness. And this is where the more we become soul aware, the more we become soul oriented, the more we find there is a power for commanding our life via becoming self-aware of our inner reality, of our inner environment. How am I choosing this incarnation? And that's where Mars comes in. Mars is desire, but it's conscious desire. We can define Mars as the conscious choices that we're making on a moment-to-moment basis. Yes to that, no to that, I want this, I don't want that, I want to go in this direction. Or, unconsciously, I'm just going to react and do this and do this and that. And all of these choices have a consequence. Every choice we make will elicit a reaction from the environment or from our body or from whatever. Every choice that we make will not just impregnate life with a seed, it sets something in motion. And what happens with Mars, we become aware of the effects of our actions. I'm going to do this. I'm going to scream out because I'm hungry. And like, okay, people will get pissed off by that. I'm going to go and take who and what I want indiscriminately because I'm desiring it. Like, oh, well, that creates some pretty intense karma. We develop karma with Mars. In fact, Mars, it's an unavoidable path. Action will create an effect in the environment. And when we look at Mars from the point of view of the soul's evolutionary journey, what's really happening is we're becoming more and more conscious of our actions. And what actions are necessary for me? What actions are really helpful and relevant and useful for me to consciously evolve? Whereas Mars is looking at an open field of possibilities and directions. We're choosing, and we can choose all kinds of things. Pluto doesn't have all those kinds of choices. On the level of Pluto, there are just two choices, and I've said this before. It's cooperate or resist. Those are the only two choices that exist with Pluto. With Mars, it can be all kinds of things, but when our choices are with respect to evolution, the way we engage our Mars energy won't feel as random progressively. There will be a consciousness and an intentionality behind it. And this is where I think of Mars as a self-cleaning oven. Because each action will create an effect. It creates karma. So it's burning, but it's burning to burn itself. We're acting to burn through whatever we need to burn through within ourselves to set forward our path in life. Sometimes that means going in the direction that might seem unspiritual. It might mean embracing desires, embracing passions, setting in motion a whole life path that means a whole new level of complexity. But to live through it, integrate it, learn from it, and then move on. That's a lot healthier, in my opinion, in my experience, than avoiding the desires entirely because you don't want to create karma, because you don't want to stir shit up. In fact, in my opinion, that is the modality of spirituality for many, many years, for many centuries, where desire has been seen as a point of suffering. So don't act, don't create, don't take. Don't live from your desire energy. It'll create more karma. It'll create more suffering. It'll create more destruction. And Mars is destructive. Mars is a very destructive energy. It's unavoidable. In fact, if you look at the glyph of Mars, it's a circle with an arrow shooting out of it. Circle, think of circle as Pisces, right? It's the wholeness. Mars, Aries comes right after Pisces. It's the oneness, wholeness, spirit, Mars, leaving it. It's like disrupting, and it's also not stable, right? It can't balance on that circle. Whereas Venus is balanced, it's harmony, it's centered. So there's been a lot of fear and judgment around all of this. Like, avoid it, avoid it, avoid it. When we really understand the relationship between Mars and Pluto, it's really tantric. It says, live your life, make choices. You're going to destroy some things. You're going to stir shit up. Things will come up. And that's not wrong. There's a great story in the Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna has that realization. I can't go to battle and fight these people. They are my family. He saw the oneness and almost a ultimate futility in the idea of fighting and killing. And Krishna said, no, you have to do this. You have to go to battle. There's a deep spiritual teaching in that. One expression of spiritual maturity is the ability to really claim the path that is necessary for us. That might mean using fossil fuels. That might mean whatever diet you need to follow. That might mean embracing certain life choices, wanting certain things, going for certain things, controlling certain things, saying no to certain things. It means using your will, and that will have an effect. And not every effect that you establish, that you create, will be light and love. But there is an ultimate evolutionary value in it. One of the teachings is all of this is impermanent. Everything comes and goes. And the question becomes, how are we going to engage with this fabric of impermanence? It's all going to come and go anyway. That's not a sign to be reckless, but it's also okay to acknowledge that this life is offered for our using. Very often we carry guilt. So Mars Pluto, when it comes together, because right now in the sky, which is also in you, in us, Mars and Pluto are joining, they're coming together. And oftentimes when that happens, there can actually be this guilt that we feel, a natural guilt that arises about using our energy, directing our will, because of how we have collectively misused that. That Mars energy has wreaked havoc. It's been a total asshole. We've been totally unconscious with our use of masculine energy. The way masculine Mars energy has hurt and destroyed and devastated the feminine, the earth, the body, women, life, the delicate, right? That which has no choice but to be impregnated by our visceral impulses. We have done very, very devastating things to life, to ourselves, and we carry that grief and that guilt collectively. And a lot of people on the flip side of that carry a resistance and an anger and a hatred and a repulsion to that Mars energy because of how they perhaps have been affected and hurt by that energy. Really, these are two sides of the same coin, right? The guilt and the fear of using that will, and the repulsion of that, right? Just the violated and the violator. It's all inside of us. And very, very often we will have had lifetimes, it's not always the case, but sometimes we'll have had lifetimes of playing one or the other. The key here during these transits is to really realize, am I carrying this fear of acting? Am I carrying this incredible repulsion, which is really just a way of holding myself back from acting, from using my own energy? And to tune into really, what is my path? What am I called to at this time? And to forgive ourselves. When Mars moves towards Pluto, it's a balsamic conjunction. What balsamic conjunction is the conjunction while it's moving towards an exact alignment. So it's that space just before the exact conjunction, the end of a cycle. It's a dissolving process. We become introspective and reflective of, am I called to act? Am I afraid of acting? Do I feel guilty about acting? Do I feel like it's not okay to act? We can forgive ourselves during this phase and say, okay, it is my right, it is my purpose to act, but consciously. That's what heals the guilt and the shame and the violation and the disgust. Claiming our power in our action. Abstaining doesn't heal it. It might be a part of the process, but just acting doesn't heal it either, consciously. Mars is conscious action. Pluto are the unconscious impulses of the soul that we're gradually becoming more and more and more aware of. Why are we here? What's our evolutionary purpose? What are we realizing? What power are we claiming on the inside? When we act consciously, we are acting with respect to our soul. We are acting with respect to evolution. We are consciously using our will like an instrument. I am doing this with this purpose, with this intention, in this way. Yes, it's going to open up a whole bunch of doors, and I will breathe through it. When we die, we exhale. When we're born, we inhale. All of life is basically bookended between these two breaths. All these millions, billions of inhales and exhales. We learn to be born, we learn to die in each moment by acting complete action. Letting go, complete letting go. That sets evolution and growth in process, in motion. We can think of Mars as the lower octave of Pluto, and I want to introduce that idea to you. Mars is a lower octave of Pluto, Venus is a lower octave of Neptune, Mercury is a lower octave of Uranus. And it's basically a way of looking at archetypal energy at a different domain of consciousness. So I just want to present that. It's a really useful piece to think about. Now, one other way to speak about the Mars-Pluto interface, think about Aries and Scorpio. Mars rules Aries, Pluto moves Scorpio. If you count the degrees, let's see from your perspective, from Aries all the way to Scorpio, you have what's called a full phase inconjunct. That's 210 degrees. The inconjunct is often known as the annoying, difficult aspect. Let me define this. So Aries is about freedom, action, movement. Scorpio is about life and death. So you see the inherent challenge between the two. It's like Aries wants to act and move, and it needs freedom. With Scorpio, whatever we do, if we're going to commit to something or to someone, we're opening up a whole life path. It's setting in motion a whole new evolutionary phase. So for example, Mars, I want to have sex with this person. Scorpio, I just opened up a door of attachment, fear, desire, longing, wanting. Right? Consciously, I'm using my freedom to move into an experience of commitment to soul growth. That's where we can use this energy for marriage. I'm going to consciously merge with this experience with this person and see it through completely. But what could happen with that Aries, Scorpio, Mars, Pluto energy is we act and then we are entrapped. Mars does not want to be entrapped. It can't be entrapped because we need to feel like we can act. When we create a karmic reality for ourselves where we feel entrapped, that's exactly where we're going to be working through some inner areas of disempowerment. Because with Mars and Pluto, we realize I can always make a choice. And that choice might be as simple as my arm's asleep, I gotta move my arm. I'm not just gonna flow with the circumstances. Or it might mean, all right, thank you, time to move on. In the scope of things, the small things and the big things, it's all the small things because it's all impermanent. If it's a relationship for 30 years or a conversation you're having for 2 minutes, the Mars-Pluto connection, and this is what's really up right now. This is a time to really say, okay, what is a time to move on from? And what is a time to move towards? We often get really invested in this idea of permanence. And Pluto transits are really great for teaching us that it's all really, really short term. Right? Even a soulmate. You're together for, let's say a whole lifetime and there's amazing, beautiful growth. It's also impermanent. So living consciously, we're not afraid of letting go. We're not afraid of gain or loss. So this time right now with Mars and Pluto coming together in a balsamic conjunction, it's on one level, we're completing a karmic cycle, working through whatever we need to work through on the inside so we can have the power and the strength and the confidence to act. Go for what we want. Do what we need to do. Set in motion the path that is necessary for our evolution. And two things. If you don't, there might be a lot of, choices or actions or experiences that will reflect back to us where we're not living in our power. Or if we're not integrating and listening to these reflections, it can just be a lot of chaos. And I like to use the word stupid when it comes to Mars, and it's not a derogatory thing. It just simply means action without thought. With Mars, we're a leader. So we take in information, we learn, like, okay, how did that go? Battlefield, retreat, think, reflect, strategize. What didn't work so well? What can I do better next time? How is this evolving? Where is this taking me? And to some extent, we're not aware of the degree to which we may not be in our power. Of course, right? Because we all have existing patterns that are just deeply ingrained, that we haven't become conscious of entirely. So the Mars-Pluto transit can actually bring up a lot and accelerate and move forward life experiences to help us become aware of where we can claim our own power. When our reference point for all stuckness is claiming more of ourselves, we'll do well. When we fall into victimization, and it's okay if that comes up, but I really advise and suggest the reflection around not to get stuck in victimization, because that's basically affirming this false idea that we actually are stuck, that we can't make a choice, that we can't realize more of our own power, more of our own truth. So as this comes together, Mars and Pluto, individually and collectively, it's energy opening up for clear conscious action that will really bring greater growth. On the negative side, right, Mars is war, Pluto is cataclysm. So there's obviously a lot of potential for danger. And so when these energies escalate, it really invites us to claim that, unhealthy masculine energy out in the world. It's inside of us. So we have to claim it. I'm going to use this energy consciously. That's how we meet the times. We claim that fire consciously, with love, with respect. The best use of Mars energy, even though it's destructive, even though it has to take, it sets in path a motion of experiences that might stir shit up, but at the core there's a respect. Mars is defending and protecting what is worthwhile to live for. It's not degrading. It's not acting out of a uncontrolled desire to take to the disrespect of life. This is a great time to integrate that within ourselves and to heal where we might be holding on to guilt around all of this, or fear regarding this. And when Mars and Pluto moves into a new phase, the invitation will be for more action, more choices, moving more consciously in the direction of our own soul path. There can be a lot of fear. I've never been here before. Mars, Pluto in a new phase often brings up a lot of fear, whereas the balsamic phase can feel like, I don't know what's going on. I need to move energy, but I'm stuck. I'm not even sure where to go with this. There's a lot of introspection, a lot of healing happening. But when it comes into the new phase, it's a new path. And we're called to act. We're called to move. We're called to get on with our path. And Mars-Pluto in general goes into two cycles. Clear, decisive action, and then the breaking down of whatever happens because of those actions. Right? It's like you act, you do, and then you watch what happens to life. And that impacts our own psychology. We integrate that, we learn from that, and then we act again. And both of these two phases can be very deep. Just think about the idea of pregnancy. There's action, and then there's, oh, this is what happened now. Okay, this is the path we're walking. Hopefully consciously. The highest expression, again, of Mars is consciously acting. Because we haven't understood our power of co-creation, the power and the right that we have, that we carry to use our wills with consciousness and love, we have not understood that life doesn't have to be accidental. All aspects of it. It's not like haphazard. I'm just going to eat and then I feel crappy. Well, what are you eating? How does it affect your body? I'm doing something and all these things happen. People react this way. How are we acting? What are we putting out there? we can cultivate consciousness and intention so that we know I'm acting consciously and this is what's going to happen. We can set in motion. Of course, the Pluto piece says there's a level to which we're going to learn along the way, but we become more conscious the more we do it. Finally, I want to offer a little practice. In 2008, I did this for myself when I was really deepening in my own astrological studies and, just began doing readings at that time. It's a way of understanding the relationship between Mars and Pluto in your own life. Step 1, find Pluto in your chart. Where's Pluto? Do you have Pluto in Libra, Virgo, Leo? What house is it in? Right? The house is the area of life where evolution is happening. That's where the greatest amount of growth and metamorphosis can potentially happen in this lifetime. The sign is the style, it's the orientation, it's the consciousness that expresses through that area of life. Find your Pluto. Step 2, find out how to read an ephemeris. All right, go to astro.com, find the ephemeris list, Swiss ephemeris, 6,000 year ephemeris. I'll post this for you. And pick a 2-year frame of time, starting with when Mars was on your Pluto, transiting Mars. So let's say you have Pluto at 15 degrees Libra. Find a time when Mars was on your Libra, transiting at 15 degrees Libra. Observe, reflect, think about what was happening in your life just before it was at that point and just after that time period. When it was in the balsamic phase to your Pluto, before the conjunction, and afterwards. Then look to see the next time Mars formed an angular aspect to your Pluto. The angular aspects are the conjunction, the squares, and the opposition. Angles. So 90 degrees later, Mars will have moved to 15 degrees Capricorn and continue doing that for the opposition and for the last square. The conjunction's a seeding, it's a completion of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. The square, the first square, 90 degrees, is a crisis in action. There's been a whole development of self-discovery. Now it's time to make new choices. How am I going to engage and break the ground and further integrate the intention seated at the conjunction? The opposition is a birthing, right? The seed that has sprouted is now beginning to fruit. It creates the greatest amount of stress and tension and potential for growth and evolution. Now it's time to really integrate that initial intention consciously in life. Mars will be in the opposite sign and house of your natal Pluto. So it's really about mastery and integration. And that last square, at 270 degrees, is a crisis in consciousness. Now the cycle's beginning to come into completion. So we want to break free from whatever patterns or cycles we've come into, that we've developed, and further make choices to disseminate and release and further integrate the original intention all the way at that initial conjunction. That last quarter square can bring a lot of sudden changes, a lot of new empowered choices to let go and release our energy more consciously. What I want to say is you don't have to know your chart. Just know your Pluto. Start with defining what is your Pluto about. Reflect on the archetype of your Pluto.